are you both ready to jump into our first caller?
Let's do it.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm going to jump off screen. I will, Brian, once you guys want that photo on screen, let me know. In the meantime, here's your first caller. Kayla, you're on with Thomas and Brian.
Hi, Kayla. Good to talk to you. Ethan shared your photo with us. You want to give us a little bit of a preamble to that photo before we have that pulled up here on the screen to have a look at it?
Sure. I took that beginning of the year. It was in March, and my son's monitor, the parent unit, is sound activated. And if I'm not hearing any noises for a while, I always click it just to check on him. And I just looked at it, and I happened to see this figure. Looks like it's crouching down, watching my son. And I was outside at the time. I flew into my room, checked everything, didn't see anything, went back out and looked at it, and it was still there. I tried to rationalize, thinking, maybe I had closed and it was the night vision picking up on it. And I looked at it again and it disappeared. And then 20 minutes later, I looked again and it was right back in the same position.
So it didn't move or anything. It was just a stationary figure?
Yeah.
Okay. Ethan, why don't you pop that up on here so everybody can have a good look at it. And let's see. And we have the child in the crib on the left here, right above the timestamp. Guessing that what we're looking for is some sort of figure over here in the on the right side here. Can you clarify what we're seeing, or what you feel that we should be seeing?
It looks like a hooded figure with a pale face. I did not feel any malicious energy or negativity coming from it. I have a few theories of who or what it could have been. And a couple of my friends who dabble with the spirits and within and all that stuff, I brought it to their attention, and they all told me, it could be bad, it could be good, but because I didn't feel anything negative, it probably wasn't anything bad.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Sure.
First off, I'm sorry, I missed your name. I apologize.
Kayla.
Kayla.
Okay. Kayla, is this something that you, if you had a reasonable scientific explanation that made sense, is that something that you want, or is this something that you want to believe?
A little bit of both. I've always been into the paranormal thing. And so when I did see it, I was like, there's a ghostie in my son's room.
It's kind of exciting. It's like, hey, it finally happened to me.
Yeah. I also live less than a block away from Resurrection Cemetery.
Resurrection Mary?
And I know, well, the Resurrection Cemetery in Romeoville. I could walk to the end of my block and I'm right there.
Can I ask you what model camera you're using?
It's called a Florian.
How do you spell it?
It's nothing really fancy. It's just a video monitor. It doesn't go through Wi-Fi. You don't need an app, and I purposely did that on purpose.
Okay. So I
was always hearing horror stories.
Yeah, I'm curious if it's a kind of a budget baby monitor. Do you have your settings set to manual, or is that even an option?
I can do manual on it.
But right now they're set to auto.
It automatically goes to night vision if it's dark in my room.
Okay, and if you add a little bit of light, or if it becomes a little bit darker, then will you see the exposure adjust a little bit, or the focus adjust a little bit, if there's like objects coming close or far from the camera?
I can't do that. It's not that tech. I can just turn it on and off, basically.
Yeah.
I
So
can't adjust
what I'm
any brightness
what I'm
or
getting
color.
at what I'm getting at is it's not like a fancy DSLR camera where you can adjust all of these settings manually, or even if you can, it's just set up right now in just an automatic mode where it automatically sets the settings, it automatically adjusts to whatever environment it's in. Does that sound about right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason that I asked that is because I've seen a number of cases like this, and I actually just interviewed a ghost hunter he's also a tech enthusiast, and he breaks down cameras and he does a lot of stuff with photography. And he had a similar case to this one where it was the camera settings specifically that were showing something very natural, but it was misinterpreted as paranormal. And what I'm seeing in the case with yours, it looks a little bit different, but from what you're telling me, it sounds like it showed up and then it went away and then it showed up again. And I'm not saying it's not a
Mhm.
ghost. I'm not saying that, that I'm not ruling this out or trying to discount or belittle in any way. I'm simply saying, like, it sounds like there's a very reasonable explanation for this, because I've worked with cameras. I've been editing videos for 15 years now, and I've seen footage like this where you'll have a camera adjust to a scene, and you might have it automatically adjust either the exposure or the focus, and cause these little blotches of light that you're seeing. If we can pull the photo back up real quick, it might cause it to, like in this case, it looks like there's either something on the lens itself, or there's a reflection. There's some light coming through from the top, and it looks like the top part of the camera is overexposed. And so you're seeing a lot of white up at the top. Now, if you adjust the exposure down a little bit, then the white at the top won't be as washed out, but the baby in the foreground will become a little bit darker. And so if the camera automatically adjusts for that, then the little white splotch that kind of looks like a head in the photo, that might disappear. And so the pattern that looks like a human figure would disappear along with it. And then if it automatically adjusts again, then it can cause that to come back. And it can come back and it can go away, and it can do that all day long. But it's not necessarily paranormal. Our brains are just really, really good at finding patterns that aren't necessarily there. So there's a phenomenon called pareidolia. And it's why you might think that something looks like a face on Mars, or you see like something that looks like two windows and a door, and it might look like a smiley face.
Seeing like wood knots and stuff a lot,
Yeah. And so if we see these patterns in a photo, a lot of times there's some really good examples. If you Google search for pareidolia, you'll see these faces or these things that look like faces or objects or figures. And then you look closer and you're like, oh, that's the outline of a bush, and that's the outline of this or that, or that's, and there's common, very explainable natural explanations for it. But I think that might be what we're seeing here. Because initially when I saw that photo, because they sent it to me through Twitter, I had a hard time seeing the figure at all. And then I looked at, where the light was, and I was like, okay, I can kind of see the outline of a shadowy figure. But if you adjust the exposure a little bit, then that goes away.
Understandable. I also use my phone to take a picture of the video camera screen.
Mm-hmm.
So that could have thrown it off as well. But since then, my son has also experienced other things that I wasn't able to document. My grandma passed away 7.5 years ago, before my son was born.
I'm sorry.
And she was very old-fashioned. And she always said if I slept with a fan on, it would catch on fire and I could die. And I have her memorial card right above my son's crib in a picture frame. And one night, my fan shut off and her memorial card fell and landed face up with all the information on my son.
Okay. And so, regarding your grandmother that passed away, are we speculating that that you believe this might be her spirit visiting your son? Then is that a
I
possibility
believe
you like
it
to
was
entertain?
I believe it was either my grandmother, my aunt, or my son was supposed to be a twin, and I ended up losing him very early in pregnancy.
I'm sorry.
And my son, I believe that he is seeing his brother
Okay.
because my son he's a little bit delayed. He's speech delayed. And we were playing in the back room that we always do, and his ball rolled underneath the futon. And he went underneath it to go get it, and he freaked out. And he jumped up and he goes, "Ma, car." I'm like, "What?" And that's not a car, that's a ball. And he got really frustrated with me. He goes, "No, car." And with that, he went and got the ball and showed me. My son's only 2 now, and there's no way for him to know this, but his brother's name would have been Carson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanna handle this as delicately as I can, because obviously it sounds like there's a lot of pain and trauma and stuff here. Um,
I know it could be wishful thinking.
yeah,
I'm like I said, I try to rationalize it. And like you said, it could have been something as simple as clothing or something in the picture.
mm,
Well, that you're open to natural circumstances causing this is a good step, and nobody's here to disparage your if it comforts you to think that your grandmother's spirit is watching over your child, or that your other child is there. No one wants to disparage that, but when it comes to this photograph, we can only work with what we know. And Thomas has looked into this type of stuff quite a bit with the ghost hunting and ghost photos and stuff like that. So he is pretty knowledgeable on that. And pareidolia is one of the most common explanations that we see for photos like this. So that's probably what we're looking at here, just to be blunt about it. But
as far as the business card, because I want to kind of come back to that a little bit. I just did a video on ghosts and on things that are commonly mistaken for ghost spirits, poltergeists. And one of the things that I covered in there, I don't really see people go over a lot, but I think it's way more common than people realize. And that's that we set things down all around us, either on a slope or towards the edge of something, or even if it's just lightweight, there can be a change in air pressure, there can be wind, there can be, if something is sitting right at a point where it's reached its maximum friction, then even a tremor in the floor next door can cause things to slip or slide or fall off. Now, as far as the fan shutting off, I mean, I would have to know the model of the fan. There's circuitry issues in the house that could have caused it. It could be breakers shutting off. It could be a blown fuse. And obviously we can start at the beginning and work one by one through it. The goal of my videos have been for people who have a tremendous amount of fear of the paranormal and fear of poltergeists and evil spirits and stuff. I want to walk them through and show them that, like, you don't have to be afraid, because there's very normal explanations for all of this. Now, obviously, in this case, it sounds like you're still grieving, as you should be, and there's a lot of bereavement and hope there that there is something more. And I'm not going to rob you of that or tell you that, you can't believe in that or cling on to that or hope for that. But as far as this potentially having normal, natural explanations, I think that there's more than enough here to explain through natural causes. And just because, even if it's not their spirit or a ghost or something, it doesn't mean that the memories aren't still beautiful. It doesn't mean that all of the memories that you have of them aren't wonderful, and that you can't pass that on or share that with your child, and that you don't have something that's a legacy that lives on through you, even if it's not connected through some cosmic energy or something, it still lives on in our memories. And I think that there's something absolutely beautiful there. When someone passes away, they're still in a way a part of this universe, and that like matter isn't created or destroyed. And when someone passes on, they continue in the circle of life, but I don't know, there's something, not in a energy sense, not in a spiritual sense, but just in a sense of like we're all connected to this universe. And even if our time isn't permanent, even if it doesn't live eternally, that doesn't devalue the time that we had with the people that we love. That doesn't devalue
more value to it,
this earth. Yeah.
I know.
So
the life is so fleeting. It really does does add to the beauty of the time we have with those people in our lives. So yeah.
And
Sorry,
I've lost every single one of my grandparents, and I'm sad that I didn't get more time with them, especially because I'm the youngest child and my dad was the youngest child. So by the time they passed, I was still fairly young. But I take tremendous pride in the legacy that they left, and I take tremendous pride in being their grandson and hearing the stories and relearning my history and going through photo books and stuff. And to me, I am sad that I didn't get more time with them, but at the same time, the time that they were here, I think was wonderful. And I think it was beautiful. And being able to go back and like look at old photos and hear stories and stuff. It's like, there's more of a heartfelt kind of, I don't know how to describe this, but when I talk to someone who, understands that the person has moved on and that phase of being with them and having them here is over, there's this sense of treasuring those moments more than when I talk to people who are like, oh yeah, and they're here all the time and they're in heaven and it's not really a big deal. And I don't know, it's a different way of looking at things, but I don't think that it's bad necessarily. It's sad to lose them and it sucks to have them gone. But as far as how do we cope with it now, I don't think that in like embracing the natural world and understanding that like they're not here anymore, that I don't think that necessarily makes the time that you had with them any less precious. Or their memory.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah. I don't know if that helped at all. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a grief counselor, and so I'm way underqualified.
No, it's fine.
Well, it's a difficult subject to broach, and everybody, depending on your upbringing and how well you knew the person, everybody handles a loss differently. It goes along with what he was saying, is that thinking of life as something that's fleeting and we only get one shot at makes it that much more special to remember the time that we had with these people. So definitely understand, that when you're in that grieving state, that sometimes your mind can be more primed towards interpreting things as signs or supernatural experiences, because you get your brain primed for that, to try to reach out and touch one last time or to make contact with that person, just again because you miss them so much, and it really can play with your brain a little bit. But Kayla, if you have any more pictures or anything that come up, definitely get a hold of Ethan and share them with us, and we can have you call back in and we can look at some different stuff. But we got a few callers lined up. Was there anything you wanted to say before we let you go?
No, that should be about it.
I just want to say real quick before you go, I know that with my channel, I focus mostly on, is there sufficient evidence to believe this or not? How can we know if this is true or not? And so I dive heavily into the science. I don't really touch a lot on the grief aspect of it, but I will say that one of the reasons why I do what I do is because I see people get taken advantage of, And I see people, especially when they're in a vulnerable state and when they're grieving, I see psychics come along and say, oh, hey, I can, rather than letting you have closure, I'm just going to keep feeding you little bits more and more and more. And they prey on the bereaved like vultures. And it breaks my heart because they do it and they try to milk every last penny out of people. And when I see people who are vulnerable and hurting, my goal is not to step on their hopes. It's to help them, to show them that, to help protect them from the people who would prey on them in their most vulnerable moments. So I don't know if that's, if it sounds like you've talked to some people who, are kind of more inclined to the spiritual and practicing, either psychics or something like that. I'm not sure all of the details. I know we have to move on to the next caller, but I have a whole series talking about psychics and how we can test for that stuff. And I just if anyone comes along and tries to get you to whip out your wallet and pay hundreds or thousands of dollars for readings and stuff, I strongly encourage you to, and I'm not just doing this to plug my own channel. It's completely free. If you don't want to watch them, you don't have to, but just be a little skeptical before they try to.
Oh, I didn't pay a dime for it. It was people
Okay.
that I know.
Okay, good.
I didn't reach out to anyone.
I've watched all his stuff on Mediums. Really good information. Just if you're interested in that, in spiritualism and the history of spiritualism, even he's got some stuff that delves into the old Victorian era stuff, and it's just a really interesting watch if you ever have time to sit down for it. Just plug in your stuff there for you, Thomas.
Well, and I'm not saying it because I'm like, hey, go like and subscribe. I'm literally I make this stuff because I see people who are being taken advantage of or hurting or, and it's not just psychics, but I see this type of stuff all the time. And, I would hate to see more people fall prey to that stuff unnecessarily. So.
Well, thank you so much for calling in tonight, Kayla. And again, if something else comes up, you certainly feel free to reach back out to us. It's been a very pleasant time talking to you. I'm going to go ahead and let you go now. You have a good one. Our next caller, I believe.